Today on Alimentos y Emociones podcast, we are going to talk to Dr. Claire Madigan about weight management interventions. Claire is a senior research associate at Loughborough University as part of the CLIMB team, which is Centre for Lifestyle Medicine and Behaviour. Prior to her academic career, she worked in public health, commissioning weight management services and working on the childhood obesity strategy in Hampshire. Claire completed her PhD at the University of Birmingham in 2014 and then went on to hold positions at the University of Sydney and the University of Oxford. Claire has expertise in weight management and clinical trial management with experience in behavioural and investigational medicinal trials. Claire has supervised various PhD students to completion. Please don't forget to share this episode, subscribe to Alimentos y Emociones podcast, and leave a comment. Press the notification buttons. Help us grow this channel. Also remember that on Spotify you can now leave us some stars and a review. This helps us to position the podcast as a way of disseminating science and help us grow our community. You can do this by entering the Alimentos y Emociones podcast profile on Spotify. Next to the bell, you will find 3 vertical dots where it says rate this program. Rate us and help us grow. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Alimentos y Emociones podcast. Today, I have Claire Madigan here with us, and we're going to talk about weight management interventions. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's really interesting to talk to someone, we've just had the interview with Becca Beacon on, habit-based interventions. And you've been doing a lot of work with, weight management interventions, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. And so they kind of follow on very nicely. I want to start off by sort of asking you, what's your background, Claire, and how did you get into all of this?
Well, it was when I was doing my undergraduate degree, which was in sports studies, and I had to choose my dissertation, which could either go performance focused or health. And I focused on children's obesity and using the exergaming kind of intervention to see whether we can increase their energy expenditure. And so after I finished my undergraduate dissertation, I was trying to figure out what to do. I was a trampolinist, so that's why I chose sport. I loved competing. I loved sport. So that's how I ended up there and not really thinking about career. And so then I did my master's in nutrition, physical activity, public health. And then after that, I worked in public health, and it was all around commissioning weight management services. So we were looking at different interventions with a focus on inequalities, and that was within adults mainly then. And after that, I moved into childhood obesity strategy. And then I thought, I want everything I do to be evidence-based. Yes. So then I found a PhD, which I was very lucky to have. And that was in behavioural weight management interventions in primary care. And then ever since, I've always worked in kind of weight management research. And I also met Becca, who you had on previous week during my PhD days at conferences. So that was great. And so it really is about improving people's health. That's why I do it. And I want to help people to better manage their weight. So in
the whole sort of behavioral aspect, do you still do the sports? I mean, do you still maintain like your sports sort of line or, research line or not?
Well, I have recently looked at physical activity maintenance, which is interesting. So I've done one study, which was a systematic review, mainly because we'll come on to this about weight management, but for weight management, it kind of seems that you need physical activity to be maintained to help you maintain the weight loss. So I looked in a systematic review at physical activity maintenance. And then I found that generally, once people start a program, they do tend to keep doing it, which is good news. 80% of their increased physical activity is maintained. And so as part of that, I've also got what we call a qualitative synthesis. So we're looking at all the different interviews that are being conducted. And that's interesting. It's a work in progress. So I haven't finished it yet, but that is showing that social support is really important for physical activity. So I am, I guess, looking at physical activity in terms of weight management, but it's kind of a side project at the moment, and the weight management's focusing. And it also makes me think about it because, like I said, I was a trampolinist before. I was training 4 times a week. I've now had 2 little children, 2 boys of 2 and 4, and my physical activity has decreased. So I need to get back to, trying to work out a new routine with them.
And how about, can you sort of like spell it out? Weight management, exercise is good for weight management, but not necessarily for weight loss.
If you do, we know that generally the evidence shows that if you take part in physical activity and exercise on its own, you're not likely to lose weight. You need that calorie restriction as well. But we do know there is some evidence for people maintaining their weight loss that they do need physical activity. And we know that through the National Weight Control Registry in the US, which is a cohort study of lots of people that are successful at maintaining their weight loss. And they all tend to do lots of self-monitoring of their weight and physical activity there.
Yeah, so great. And I'm glad you're sort of still keeping that, because it's kind of, I think it's an integral part of, weight management anyway, in general. So it's behavioral weight management anyway. So and I look forward to hearing what, like, the results of the qualitative work, because it must be really interesting to find out what, people's experience of doing exercise and how they feel, or how it makes them feel mainly. Is that what you're finding, or you're finding as well, the difficulties, or getting up and moving, the motivation? I don't know.
The weather is one of the barriers.
Oh, really? Yeah, I bet it is.
Either too hot or too cold. And there was an interesting one of people in Canada where you've got to be careful with the bears. So that was very
okay.
But no, social support was the main one, and then people really felt the benefits, and it was about feeling good. They felt good about themselves, and if they didn't take part in physical activity, then they just felt lethargic, and it was starting to create a new identity where I'm a physically active person. That seemed to be it.
So the social support, as in a peer running with you, or just someone cheering you on, now come on, get out of bed and go and do it?
Yeah, I think it's having someone to do it with. So lots of people talk about accountability to the group program. So when they couldn't maintain their physical activity, it was because they felt like there wasn't anyone to offer advice or to keep them on track. They liked going to the group leader, with the group leader. And we know that with weight management. Amy Ahern who's at Cambridge, she's done some great research, and it's for like weight management groups like Slim and World and Weight Watchers, it's getting weighed in front of the group leader, and it's that accountability. So I think that's the same. And if I think about my personal experience as well, if I have my friend doing it with me, I don't want to let them down. I want to do it with them. So I don't think it's help.
I'm trying to get Amy Ahern on the podcast as well. I haven't been lucky yet, but hopefully I do know her. So
I've got coffee with her afterwards, so I'll mention it.
Oh, please. Put in a good word.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, and so that's really important. But hey, I really want to congratulate you on your systematic review. So I will put the link down here, but BMJ Open systematic review on examining the effectiveness of behavioral weight management interventions for adults delivered in primary care. Wow.
It's been a bit crazy. It only came out last week, so it's it's been good.
Congratulations on that piece of work. I think that, that's something we can really sink our teeth into right now. What did you find? How did you do it? What are the results, etc.? Let's unpick this.
Yeah, it's good to unpick. You can't always talk about everything in the paper, so this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, it is.
So there was a systematic review that was completed in 2018 in the US, and that looked at lots of different weight management interventions. So as well as behavior weight management interventions, it had pharmaceutical, and it also had interventions that were not necessarily delivered in primary care. So they could be kind of referral to weight management services or university-led programs in the community. And so it didn't really tell us what can you do in primary care, because if you do a research study and then you try and implement it in a different setting, it doesn't always result in similar weight losses. So we had a little think, and we thought, due to COVID and governments around the world realizing that weight management or living with obesity resulted in greater risk from ill effects of COVID-19, then we wanted to look at the evidence for primary care. We also chose primary care because not all people want to go to commercial weight management programs. So in the UK, there is referral to commercial weight management programs. It's kind of one of our services that are available. But quite a lot of people don't want to access those types of programs. Only 10% are men that attend, and not many people from ethnic minority groups. So we thought primary care is going to be a place where it might be more equitable. And we also wanted to look at that. But there was no evidence on equity measures. So we'll come on to that a bit later.
Okay.
So we did a systematic review and meta-analysis, which meant we just pulled all the research together, and there were 34 trials. In the meta-analysis, we could only include 27 because of the way authors reported data. And we found that there was a mean difference, so a difference between the comparator and the intervention group of 2.3 kilos. So absolute weight losses in the intervention group were minus 3.7, and this is at 12 months, I should say.
Yes.
We also found people lost or reduced their waist size by minus 2.5 centimeters. Again, that's the mean difference. I forget exactly what the absolute waist circumference was with that.
I've got it right here somewhere. Yeah. Between 3.2 and 1.8 centimeters.
Okay. Yeah, that might sound right. And then we also know that at 24 months, there was 24 plus months, because some studies have follow up a bit later, and that the mean difference reduced to 1.8 kilos. But the caveat is that there are less trials at that point, so only 13 trials. So we think it's quite positive. I know minus 2.3 kilos as a difference seems quite small, and we can discuss that. We also looked at the different types of programs, because we thought primary care interventions may differ depending on what country you are in the world. Unfortunately, there's none from Mexico, but no. But there was no difference by country, so that was good. We also thought there might be think about who delivers the program. So we compared GPs, nurses, and then there wasn't dietitians on their own, but we did have kind of non-trained professionals. So there were people like health coaches who were maybe trained in behavior change training, but not specifically in dietetics or physiology. Yeah. So, and we found with that they resulted in similar weight losses to the GP and nurse-led program. So that was good, because mostly GPs don't have much time to deliver weight management intervention. So if we can have coaches and the GPs endorse the programs, then that might be a better solution.
Yes. Shame there aren't any dietitians there either, but because,
there was another group which is health professionals. So you couldn't work out in that group who delivered the intervention. Yeah. It could have been a dietitian, it could be a nurse. Or a mix of a combination. And so that doesn't tell us that much.
Yeah, no. But so what do you say to someone like a massive detractor who would say to you, well, the 2.8, is it 2.8, 2.3 kilos?
Yeah, 2.3 difference.
Yeah, 2.3 difference in weight loss between the primary care and the non-intervention or others, because I think you might want to just say who the other group was as well. That would help. What do you say to the detractors that just say, you know, but why do I do it anyway? If I, you know, why do I spend sort of like 12 months restricting all sorts of things in my life to only lose approximately? You know, it might not be just the 2.8 kilos, it's probably more than that, but you know, the difference between one group and another. And then maintaining it, that's another matter.
I know, that's a whole nother podcast. So the comparator group were either usual care or an attention control, which means they got the same number of contacts, or a wait list, so people who were waiting for the treatment after 12 months. And
sorry, what would usual care entail in the UK?
So in the UK, it would normally involve just maybe advice to lose weight. In the 10 top tips, they could have been referred to another program, so that might have reduced the mean difference. So that might be something to bear in mind. Of course, we in a review, we have to look at averages, so we just go with the average. But to the detractors, I would say we had some review comments, and I think they're on the BMJ website. And it was, well, this weight loss doesn't seem that clinically effective, but actually we know from the Look Ahead study with Rena Wing that 2 to 5% of weight losses of your initial body weight does result in clinical benefit. So it does reduce blood pressure and some reducing glucose. I think, lipids is not quite as clear, but so there is clinical benefit. As a patient, because we had a patient reviewer, the patient reviewer was like, well, that wouldn't really help me. I wouldn't want to lose 2.3 kilos. That wouldn't be helpful. And I think the key here is that maybe small changes are still beneficial for your health, and we've got to tell people that too. And I think sometimes people think, I've got to lose like 20 kilos or something, when actually if you can lose 5% and then we can maintain that because you've changed your behaviors. And Ben Gardner and Becker do say that we are missing in weight loss and weight management, that we're not breaking people's habits. So if we can break people's habits, maybe we can actually help with weight loss maintenance. So perhaps, it is a small difference, and I appreciate that, but maybe that can be a start. We do have some other research that's looking at a small change approach to weight management as well, which our PhD student Henrietta Graham, she's looking at that, and we're seeing whether if we can do those small changes, then will that help people to maintain? So that's another interesting one to look at. And even I think it's James O'Hill says that to stop people gaining weight over time, you just need to reduce your calories by 100 to 200 calories per day. So even if we can do that, then I think it's beneficial. I have gone off on a tangent now. I'm so sorry.
No, you haven't. I think it's really important, because we know we have to take all those factors into consideration. It's not just about the losing weight. It's about, what is it that's getting us to that point as well? Obviously, I mean, you've worked on childhood obesity as well, and what factors are implicated from that moment in time. It's so complicated. I mean, in the next few episodes, I will be talking, about determinants, weight determinants, and all sorts of other factors. And the more, we all dive into it, the more we want to sort of understand, our privileged or underprivileged backgrounds, our racial factors, ethnicity, etc., as part of, why we have these obesity problems worldwide, And it's a shame you didn't have anything from Mexico, but yes, it's just really difficult to set up, interventions the way they can be set up. It's expensive, as we know, as well. So I think I think the work you did is is really important, because it still highlights, that there is a benefit. So even for the detractors, I agree, you have to try and
and it is an average. So you do look at the confidence intervals, and there are some that are higher. And
so which ones did you find were higher?
So when this is a weight management intervention that won't be acceptable to everyone, but that is the beauty of weight management, in that you have to find the one you can stick to and the plan you can stick to. So the top three, which had the top three studies or interventions that had the most weight loss, were ones that had very low calorie diets. So they had 800 to 1,200 calories. It was meal replacements for the first two. And then the third one had provided meal replacement shakes for the first month, and then they carried on with the normal diet. So they were the top three. So very low. I think we know very low calorie diets do work. It's just, I didn't actually look at whether they I didn't look at the difference in the regain. So there is some evidence to suggest that the very low calorie diets you regain quicker, but because you've lost a lot at the beginning, then it's not as bad as.
But they're very difficult to maintain. That's the whole issue, isn't it? Yeah. How compatible really are they? And yet the benefits can be, very good. What about anything with, I can think of it in Spanish. Of course, I can't think of the word. I've drawn of intermittent fasting.
Oh, intermittent fasting. I haven't looked at that, but there has been a review recently. And I think from a behavioural perspective, it's easy to do, because you know that on your fasting day, you're very good at saying no to people. And that's one of the other areas of research, is about how you say no to food pushers, we call it, like at work when you go in and there's cake or there's celebrations or something. But on your fasting day, you can behaviorally say to people, no, I'm on my fasting day, and then they don't offer you, and they know what that means. So I think behaviorally it's easy to go to. I don't know what the evidence is for it. I know there was a systematic review recently that has completed it. But the World Health Organization just put out a call for reviews for a special issue, and that's one of their titles that we'd like to test in.
Yeah, the subjects. Yeah. I prefer the sort of 12 or 14-hour windows than the one day. That would put me in a very bad mood, one day without eating. One or 2 days without eating, or eating a lot less.
It's just, I tried that with the 500 calorie. I did the 5-2. I tried that.
Yeah, the 5-2.
I think something caught fire in my house, and I was like, I can't do this. I just can't do it. But for some people, it does work, and that's what we have to find.
Exactly. We have to find what works for different people, and that's what's interesting. Well, so where are you going now? Like, what are you going to be doing, in future, apart from what you were telling us about the exercise and the qualitative results, etc.? Where's your research taking you now?
The BMJ paper has been interesting, because most of the feedback has been like, what are the programs? What are the components that are successful? So we're hoping if the World Health Organization, if they accept our application, then we'll be able to look at the specific components that are effective, so that people can then take it and tailor an intervention in primary care in their country, and then we can help people to manage their weight.
Any guesses? What
it's going to be
is driving them? Like
at least
specific ones?
At least 12 contacts. That's another thing we looked at, is the number of contacts. And by contacts, I mean either through phone call or through face-to-face. So we looked at that, and we found more than 12 contacts resulting in greater weight loss than less than that. So I think it needs to involve 12 contacts. It could be someone who has training in health behavior, because I think that would be cheaper and easier to implement than getting doctors to do it, and they're very busy. It should be endorsed by the GP to say, how are you doing? How are you getting on? So we get that buy-in. And I think the main components most probably they're going to be about around self-monitoring. It's all about self-monitoring. That's the key thing. Setting goals, self-monitoring, and having that accountability, I think. And most of these programs tended to be individual sessions. There were some that were based on the diabetes prevention program, where they adapted it in a primary care setting. So they did have that too, because diabetes prevention program is really intensive. So implementing it becomes a bit more tricky. And yeah.
So earlier on you said about the accountability. How do you see that? How important is that? So there's kind of like, I'm sort of mixing them around, but there's the social support from like the from the exercise work, but I think it always has something to do, social support. Then there's the accountability, with whom, and how do you manage to evidence that?
Yeah, the accountability comes a lot in qualitative research, and I don't know how we do it in an intervention. You have like a 12-week program, and you have the accountability where you have to see the person every week. But how do we? I think the question is, how do we measure? And how do we keep it going afterwards? Because you can't just have someone to check in on you all the time. So I'm not sure. We did do a trial where we tried to look at just a simple weight loss maintenance intervention, which involved getting someone to weigh themselves on a daily basis, which I know is another controversial one, daily versus weekly, you know. So we got them to do that once they'd lost 5% of their weight to see if that benefited, and it didn't. And there was another trial by Falco, who was based in Newcastle at the time, and he had a bit more intensive intervention and with some more phone calls and things. And again, his resulted no difference. So I don't know yet. I don't know how we create that sense of accountability so it continues, or is it even effective, or is it just what people think they want? So I don't think we know yet.
So you have I'm just thinking, you know, I like the self-monitoring aspect, because you are kind of like, it makes you self-regulated. Because if you actually, you know, self-monitor whatever goal you set yourself to do, and then you check it, you know, once a week or every 2 weeks or whenever, and then you kind of change, you know, you realize whether you've you know, completed your goal or you haven't, and then you kind of address a change in the you know, and how you're going to go about achieving your goal. That would be, to me, like a form of accountability. You know, any form of self-regulation, which, you know, Becca has worked on as well with the tips with Natalie Clayman.
Yeah, and it is, I guess that's accountability to yourself rather than others, which is true. And it does, I think with self-monitoring, we've got to find a way to make it easy for people. So if you have to measure your diet every single day, people tend to dive off. So they just don't do
no. That is not, I'm a dietitian, that is not good for anybody. I don't think so. When anyone says interventions that require, you know, for you to keep records of everything that you eat, I just switch off. I think I wouldn't do it to myself. Why would I want anybody to do that?
We know it works if they do it, but making people do it and
long term as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's what self-monitoring often wanes. That's what they find. So they get people to monitor their diet. But I guess it's becoming a bit easier with technology. With physical activity, it's easy, isn't it? With Fitbits and odometers and things. But diet is
physical activity. With diet, if you have to sit there and sort of write in everything that you've eaten all day, you might be very excited and motivated to do it for a couple of weeks. But after that, it's like, forget it, you know. That's why I think that just focusing on a single part of, you know, like the dietary stuff, like just get in your fruit and veg, for example, or veg, or whatever, or just increase a bit of fiber. I don't know, just, or drink more water, or, something that just very specifically, without it having to be change your entire dietary plan. Sorry, I'm digressing because I just think in these terms.
No, it's good. It's good because it is, and it's something we, she was my PhD student. She's now my colleague. She's at Newcastle University in the UK, Mackenzie Fong. And her and I are looking at energy density. So maybe thinking about the energy density of foods rather than recording everything, just as a different way of helping people, because there's lots of evidence to show that the energy dense, nutrient poor foods are independently associated with the risk of cancer. They're about 30% of our diet. So these are foods we don't really need, no beneficial. So yeah, it seems to be going that way, that energy density. So that's another research area that came about when I was in Australia, which was about reducing indulgences we eat. So we called them indulgences, and it happened because my professor at the time, I won't name him, but he was saying no to my baking. I was new and was trying to be friendly, and obviously being a food pusher. So offering him cake, he's like, no, to manage my weight, I'm going to say no to you. So we did this thing where it was a small feasibility trial, which said we got people to say no to indulgences 7 times across a week. And we did this simple intervention because I didn't want to prescribe people that you have to say no to everything, because people won't keep it up. It's not life. But there are lots of opportunities to eat kind of the energy dense, nutrient poor foods. And it was interesting because people did reduce the indulgences they ate, and they did push food onto another. I remember a participant saying, I gave my roll to my friend so I didn't have to eat. It was interesting, but it was but that's another thing, energy dense, nutrient poor foods. So maybe that's another area. At the moment I've got lots of different pieces of research going on, so it's quite nice, but I think I do need to focus a bit more. I just get so excited.
Well, there's so much there's so much we can do. It is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you've got all these questions. Claire, is there anything else that you would like to sort of, just a message, another message you'd like to leave us with, or, we'll remember later on and go,
I know. I think the main message is for anyone wanting or helping people to manage their weight, small gains or small changes are important, and that we just need to get people into the habit and sticking to something, as Rebecca and Ben Gardner say. So yes. Thank you.
No, thank you, Claire. And, I will leave the link to the review and systematic analysis. And I will just, congratulations on that piece of work, because that's really important. And I hope that I'll keep an eye out on the website to see what else, all the comments from people as well. It is interesting to see what everyone's reaction is.
Yeah, and I've got a summary in the conversation as well. So there's a summary piece in there if that's easier as well.
Okay.
I should read.
Yeah, I will. I'll post it.
Okay, no.
And thank you so much, Claire, for coming on the podcast. And everybody, I will please subscribe, like, comment, leave your comments. What do you think of, weight loss management and interventions, and what do you think of these very small changes? Please leave a comment and share with other people so that we can all get the message across, and Claire's work across, and everything. And remember that we continue to nourish each other. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Gracias por escuchar un episodio más de Alimentos y Emociones Podcast. No olvides dejar un comentario, suscribirte al canal y presionar el botón de notificaciones. Y recuerda, nos seguimos nutriendo.